For the month of July, Maximum Pew Pew will be releasing interviews with its players to better acquaint listeners to the characters in the Dead Sun's adventure path. In this interview, we will be speaking with Trevor about his character Zenka. Hello, I'm here with Trevor. Trevor plays our the character Zenka on Maximum Pew Pew in our Dead Sun's playthrough. Trevor, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Trevor. I play Zenka. Zenka is our resident bus driver of the group, I suppose. Tends to get a little bit in over their head most of the time, but tends to work out somehow.
Okay, so you want to tell us a little bit more about Zenka, whatever you want. What you think we should know about Zenka from, episode 1, per se?
Okay, from episode 1.
Sort of the intro. At this point, people have listened to episode 1, but, just sort of a general tell us about Zenka.
Zenka is really not any kind of an adventurer. This isn't really something that they really had ever envisioned themselves doing. They're a simple host cheering from Akaton. They've been getting by on various piloting jobs for the past while. The last job that they had was a commercial pilot flying shuttles, but they ended up getting laid off, and that prompted the bit of a career change. Rumor has it that the Society was looking for people and always seemed to be in need of pilots, so it didn't seem like a bad decision to make at the time.
So essentially, Starfinder Society was just another employment opportunity for Zenka at this point. They were between jobs, so to speak, and
work can be difficult to keep on Akaton. It's a very difficult place, and there comes a point where you need to kind of just move on and try to find a place elsewhere. It's a particularly difficult situation, but it's one that they really have they've gotten all the support that really could be asked for, and it seems to be working out fairly well so far. So,
gotcha.
There's that.
Okay, so what were your influences when you created Zenka?
When I was creating Zenka, there were a couple of influences. We haven't gotten to it yet, but between Zenka and Spike, I think the biggest influences were probably Greg and Angus from Night in the Woods, in all honesty. They were a pair of characters that had an interesting dynamic that I really enjoyed, and I was wondering how that would kind of play in this kind of a setting, in this kind of a scenario with these different situations. And Zenka and Spike are kind of the pair that I came up with, but Zenka was the one that I really wanted to play.
Okay. So if you had to describe Zenka in one word, what would you pick?
Anxious.
Well, that's... I think I recall one of the lines from, an early episode was essentially, I want to take a free action to regret my life's decisions or something like that.
Yeah, along those lines. I'm pretty good at one-liners like that. What is my life? This is what we have come to.
Yep, so I can see that being appropriate. So, getting a little bit into the mechanics, so tell me about Zenka's build, anything you'd want to, any crunch that you'd like to share with.
There's not a lot of crunch because the thing is I'm still really adjusting to the system, and I'm not overly great at making optimized characters. So essentially what I did was I started, okay, what would a commercial pilot be like at first level? And so there really wasn't a lot of optimization. There was a lot of what would the character be in this kind of a situation. And the thing is as we're kind of playing the game, I'm working more towards optimizing towards the experiences that we've had thus far. So, okay, learning from these experiences, these adventures, these situations that we get ourselves into, and then kind of adapting accordingly. And I think that's really a very big part of Zenka's flexibility is they're a spellcaster, but they can swap out the spells every level or so. So it's only the one spell, but it makes it very nice in that you can kind of change things if things aren't working out.
Yeah, and that would be another question for you is, like, it seemed like the theme that you were going for was sort of the pilot of the group, and honestly, like piloting is like a skill check. Like, there's not one class that's best suited for, like, this is the piloting class. So what drew you towards Technomancer versus, like a operative, soldier? A couple of things. First, we didn't really have any sort of magic really in the group. I think Les's character Ion had a bit of psychic magic, but not a lot. Like, it really wasn't their thing. So I definitely wanted to go one of the more magic-y classes. That, and because I tend to enjoy playing casters regardless. But when it came to okay, Technomancer or Mystic, Technomancer seemed a bit of a better fit for a pilot, especially if some of Zenka's early history might not have been, say, commercial, but maybe more pilot for hire, more kind of freelance
piloting, things that you're going to kind of need to do to get the ship back up and running. So a lot of the early spells were things that I thought might be useful in a piloting situation, like what if the ship breaks down, what if you have to fix something, things along those lines. And it kind of fit fairly well.
Okay. So what roles do you see Zenka fitting into within the party? And we've already established pilot, but what else does Zenka kind of contribute?
Usually, I want to say some sort of support. Zenka has some capabilities of doing things on their own, but in general, a lot of the time, tactically, I'm thinking more trying to help out everybody else, like the supercharged weapons. We will do that until everybody starts rolling ones, and then we will find another tactic. Because that seems to be a recurring problem every time. So yeah, things that are able to kind of provide the party a little bit of help in certain situations. That's definitely the kind of player that I end up playing a lot of the time, and Zenka kind of has picked up a lot of that as well.
Okay. So what... I know that you've kind of adapted Zenka depending on the situations that they get into. Do you have any type of long-term plans that don't revolve around just like adapting to the current situation or previous experience? Like, do you have any long-term plans for Zenka?
I've got very few. When it comes to planning out characters, it tends to not be something I'm fairly good at until I'm really well-versed in a system. I've got a couple of ideas for Zenka later down the line, but not really anything that would be too set in stone that I wouldn't be willing to change. So they're more kind of general ideas and things I'd like to do, but they're not necessarily things that I have to do.
Gotcha. So, final question for you. Where can we find you on social media?
I am on Twitter at Goth Panda, and that's probably the best place if you want to find me.
Gotcha. Well, Trevor, thank you very much for taking a few minutes to talk about Zenka, and I will see you next time at the table.
You are very welcome. I will see you then.
Ambient music provided by Tabletop Audio. Original 10-minute ambiances and music for games and stories. Find out more at tabletopaudio.com.